Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for Astrology in the News. Thumbs up. April 16th, 2018, and man, it was a busy weekend. And of course, it was all about Trump. So I'm sick of covering Trump, and there's only so much I can do about his chart. So I will be saving him and putting him in a tiny little battle for later, okay? Because there's a lot more of Trump to come this summer. Trust me. All right, starting off here, we have yogic wisdom of the day. The yoga pose you avoid the most, you need the most. Author unknown. Probably should have used a comma in there too, because a lack of pause gives a lack of brevity. The other way around. Anyway, most people avoid this one, and you don't need it, because why you need to look at your own rectum, I don't know why. Maybe you're a proctologist and you need to practice on yourself. I don't know. Maybe that's where you hide your money. In that case, you probably don't want to invest in pennies. Carrie Underwood is returning after a face injury. So I guess she was injured last year and she had to have 40 stitches on her face, and now she's starting to recover, and I guess she's going back on tour. She was able to find employment during her recovery, though, as a goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks. Why not? And of course, she was very busy last week because you know what last week was. All right, so this is taking a look at Carrie Underwood's chart. Now, I'm happy because today I have accurate birth times for both of the people that I'm doing. So, all right, Carrie Underwood, born a Cancer, and of course, one of the things that you need to take note in her chart is her Venus is 2 degrees from the point of exaltation. So, whenever anybody has an exalted Venus, there's almost a guarantee of fame. And whether good fame or bad fame, it depends on the house. This is in her ninth house, and that's a pretty beneficial house to have an exalted Venus in. And then, of course, she has this conjunct Mars, which makes it a little emotional. There's a lot of like gushing, and she's putting her feeling into it, and she also puts all of her anger too into her music. So you're really going to see like the way her emotions really are reflected through her music. And of course, because this is conjunct Venus, that's where she's going to get a lot of fame and fortune from. Let's see, Sun and Mercury are conjunct in the sign of Aquarius. This usually denotes somebody that's a little bit reclusive, but Mercury in the sign of Aquarius does fairly well because it shows it's in a water sign, and I'm sorry, it's in an air sign, and when Mercury's in an air sign, it tends to show more expansive intelligence because the natural element for Mercury is air. Let's see, Moon kind of restricted here in the sign of Capricorn. Moon isn't really the best placed in Capricorn. This is also opposite her ascendant. This is difficult for relationships. So we should keep an eye on Carrie Underwood because she's going to be going through her Sade Sate soon. What that means is her Saturn is going to be transiting her moon here in a couple of days, and what that's going to do is that's going to put extra emphasis on here. So I'm just seeing if there's any chat here. So anyway, this is going to put an emphasis and difficulty on her relationships because Saturn's going to be transiting her 7th house, and wherever Saturn transits during the Sade Sate, that's probably where you're going to face the least restriction and difficulty in your life. So in her case, this is going to be the 7th house. And, I'd say probably keep an eye on her relationship in the next couple of years because this is going to make it very difficult. Not predicting divorce, by the way. It's just probably going to show some signs of trouble within the marriage. The other things, Jupiter and Uranus here are almost conjunct in the sign of Scorpio. Shows somebody that has a little bit of intuitive perception to that. And actually, if you take, she actually has a grand trine here. It's not an official grand trine, but if you take her ascendant, it's aspected almost perfectly by Jupiter. This is something that's also going to denote a very high level of fame. This is actually very good for having Jupiter's aspect in your ascendant actually removes some of the difficulty revolving around some of the other aspects of the chart. And Jupiter also aspects Mars here. So you have this almost very tight pseudo grand trine here in the water sign. So this is actually called a water grand trine, which shows somebody puts, put a lot of emotion into their music. And then when you combine this here with the moon, this is almost like a kite formation too, because the moon is only going to be 3 degrees off of this too. So yeah, that's actually a fairly beneficial thing, even though, like I said, not a true kite formation. If you throw in the ascendant, it still has significance because the ascendant is going to act as a transit point. So if you have like an aspect formation in your chart, but there's not an actual planet there, it's not considered a true aspect formation. It depends on the astrologer. What the way I believe it is that it is still a significant point of your chart, because anytime something transits, like for her ascendant, like the north node of the moon was transiting her ascendant at this time where she had her accident, this is really going to really affect you. So pay attention if you have that in your chart, okay? Moving on here, sorry, I'm switching back. All right, so John Stamos became a father at 54. Not sure if he has any kids already. I think he does, but hey, if this is his first, congratulations to you, Mr. Stamos. And of course, this is John attending his kid's high school graduation. So being an astrologer, I can take photographs in the future, and I can see him. He's this guy right there. You see him? He's all tired. He's like, I want to go to bed. So yeah, good for you, John Stamos. So enjoy your geriatric fatherhood. Anyway, so I also have a accurate birth time for John Stamos. And man, this chart screams actor. Look at all these planets here in the sign of Leo. I mean, especially the sun here. The sun does very well in Leo. It's very good for ego expression. Conjunct Venus and the moon. He was born very close to a new moon. So, and this is of course opposite his ascendant. So this is dealing in the 7th house. That's the house of other people. So really, I mean, I've seen like politicians and actors and sports stars, people that really like to be in the limelight, have a lot of really strong Leo placements. Another interesting aspect of his chart is look at Mercury right here. It's actually in just barely in the sign of Virgo. Normally, Mercury is exalted in the sign of Virgo, but for him, it's not exactly in a good position. This is what I keep talk about, like Sandhi. Sandhi means in between in Sanskrit. And when you think about it, think about if you are in, like, let's say you're going from your living room into your kitchen and you have 1 foot in one room and 1 foot in the other room. You really don't get quite the flavor of both rooms. So that's why in Vedic astrology, a planet on the cusp of a house or a sign is considered weak, because it can't express its true intention because it's in between two different places. I think it's different in Western astrology. Planets are actually considered strong when they're on the cusp of the house. So let's see, other aspects of this chart. Jupiter is well placed here in the sign of Pisces in the 2nd house. Usually shows somebody that's very good at emotionally expressing their voice. Pisces also too is related to acting. So just like when we were talking about Carrie Underwood, she had her Venus here. It really shows somebody that is very good at expressing their emotions through, especially here in the 2nd house, through voice, okay? And if you take a look at his dashas right here, he's going to be going into his Jupiter dasha. Well, right now he's in the middle of his Rahu dasha. That started in 2006. Let's see, Rahu's in the 5th house. Yeah, you talk about planets in the 5th house. That could, and if you're actually in that 5th house, that could actually show children. So how you predict children in Vedic astrology, it's a general formula. What you do is you look at Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter is an indicator of children, the Lord of the 5th house, and planets in the 5th house, and the moon. And then you look at and see if there's any planets transiting in the 5th house, and if there's any interrelationship between those, and especially if you have a lot of them, the more indicators you have, the stronger indicator is going to show pregnancy or the chances of having a child, okay? So moving on, Mercury is out of retrograde. Let me tell you something. I want to show you some notes about Mercury retrograde, because it's actually the most overrated aspect or event in astrology. And let me tell you why, because, and this is what I've noticed, most of the difficulty during a Mercury retrograde is psychosomatic, meaning that people's belief in a bad retrograde Mercury is really a self-fulfilling prophecy. So in my own experience, I really haven't noticed that much difficulty during a retrograde Mercury. And but what I have noticed is you need to have particular planetary placements in order to feel a retrograde Mercury stronger than other people. So a retrograde Mercury affects those with planets in Gemini and Virgo, because it rules both of those signs, or it's being aspected or conjunct the retro. So like, for instance, if you had a planet in the sign of Aries, so I'm talking Western astrology, or in Pisces in the sign of Vedic astrology, if you have a planet where Mercury transits over it, then goes retrograde, then goes forward again, you are going to feel those effects. And it's going to be felt in the house, first of all, the house that the retrograde's occurring in, and then also too, if it's going retrograde over a planet, you need to look at what that planet represents and also to the houses that that planet rules, because that's going to give you a better idea of how Mercury affects you, okay? And also too, let's see, also to people that have a natal retrograde Mercury. I was talking about this last week because I did a whole bunch of people's charts that were in the news, and a lot of them had a natal retrograde Mercury, like Stormy Daniels, Cohen, Trump's attorney. That's just a couple of examples. I think I probably had at least 10 charts that had retrograde Mercury. So if you have a natal retrograde Mercury, you need to pay attention to retrograde Mercury, because at most of the times, that's when people are at their best, okay? So Cohen probably was a little bit of an outlier, but I mean, if you look at Stormy Daniels, she was actually became a lot more famous than probably when she was banging all these dudes on the internet. I mean, she it'll bring you fame or infamy, and hers was actually retrograde too in the sign of Pisces. So Stormy Daniels, I mean, it was almost the perfect storm. Anyway, and of course, it can, now on a mundane level, I have seen it affect travel and communication, not necessarily technology. I've been in IT for a long time, and I haven't noticed a retrograde Mercury have a spike in computer repair problems. So I think we really need to take a look at Neptune and how Neptune actually affects the internet instead of looking at specifically retrograde Mercury. So, all right, that's all I had for you today. Like and subscribe, share, 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 and if you want to contact me, just hit me at the links below. And also, too, if you want to check out my Facebook page, I got it linked on the what is it, the YouTube banner, and also too, there's a link to my website too. I got a lot of great stuff on there. So, all right, like I said, hope you have a great day, and I hope I'll see you tomorrow.